You're listening to the Infinite Banking Mastery Podcast. Did you know that you could build a tax-free pool of wealth that's liquid and accessible all your life while building your retirement nest egg? Gain full control of your financial future and stop relying on the government and banks. The wealthy have already discovered this wealth-building secret. Now it's your turn to get financially secure without following the conventional wisdom that keeps you in debt to banks. Now here's your host, Valerie LaRocque.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Infinite Banking Mastery Podcast. I hope you had a great week. I thought I would share today some highlights from the IBC Think Tank that I attended last week. It was really great. As I mentioned, I had the opportunity to be a presenter on stage at the Think Tank, which was the first time actually that I've presented there. It was a really great experience. I'm thankful that they asked me to do so. What they wanted me to share was just my story, being that I had started my first business while at the University of Washington as a junior, getting my degree with a concentration in finance. They wanted me to share how I had that business age 21. At age 22, I opened my second business, a restaurant in the Pike Place Market. And then age 24, I started in this industry, helping people with life insurance. And then I got licensed for helping people with their retirement accounts or other investments. I've had a lot of experience in all the different types of things that a lot of us practitioners come across. I started off in this industry buying term and investing the difference. And then I went to a company where I invested the difference, and that was all I really did. And then from there, came across and learned about IULs, which are another popular policy that's out there a lot on TikTok and a lot on social media, just in general. A lot of people are talking about these IULs like they're the most amazing thing. And so I had an opportunity to learn and work with that before discovering and falling in love with the infinite banking concept, which as soon as I learned that, became fully passionate about it and really just determined and excited to teach people about this concept that I think everybody should know. And I think it should maybe be taught in school, just what's going on with your money, what's going on in the economy, what's happening with your money, and how you can do safer things and same sort of things that banks do, that you can do it too. And so I was just excited to have the opportunity to learn and teach that. And I've been excited ever since I first learned of it. So the Nelson Nash Institute thought that my story could be helpful and inspiring to some people. And so they allowed me to share it there. And that was a lot of fun. It's always great to meet up at the Think Tank once a year, connect with new friends and old friends and other IBC leaders in the nation and also in Canada. It's always great to just learn from each other and get to visit and talk about what's going on in the IBC world. It's really great. So now I thought I would just go over some of the highlights from the Think Tank, some of my notes that I took that while I was there that I thought might be helpful or interesting to you. So the first one I thought I would cover, I thought it was really interesting. David Stearns, who runs the Nelson Nash Institute, shared a story of Nelson, who was his father-in-law, about his policy that he bought from State Farm in 1959. Now, Nelson talks about this policy in the book, The Case for IBC, which you could pick up a copy and learn more about what he has to say about that policy. But what's interesting is it was just a plain whole life policy. There was no paid up additions rider or anything like that. It still built plenty of cash value. He actually used the dividends to help pay the premiums on that policy for the first 15 years of owning that policy. And when he passed away, which was 2019, I was told that the death benefit on that policy was close to $200,000. And I just thought that was really cool information to know. Something else I heard that I thought was worth mentioning and that I think is important for you to remember is that if you want a more MEC-resistant policy, then you'll want a higher base premium and a lower term rider. I know that there are a lot of, again, social media people out there talking about squish down your base premium as low as you can and put the largest paid up additions rider on that policy that you can, but it's just not as safe. It just is more risky for becoming a MEC. Even though you might illustrate it just fine from the beginning, it still is at a higher risk of MECing. So you really don't want to have this gigantic term rider and then very low base. The higher the base, the more resistant your policy is to becoming a MEC. Dividends. Again, with so many agents out there preaching super low base premiums, this is a good thing to know, that the dividend is larger on base premium than it is on paid-up additions premium. The way I heard it was the more base you get to pay, the higher the dividend can become. So it's not necessarily going to be a ginormous difference. The difference from, I'm paying this much base premium and I can tell that dividend is just so huge. But the dividend does tend to be larger or billed to be larger if you have more base premium in the policy than paid-up additions premium. Or just not a super low base premium. Because we are, as practitioners, we are still going to lower that base premium to try to make your cash grow more efficiently. We just don't want it so low. One thing I heard more than once was as income rises, you should be an honest banker by increasing your premium. I thought that was an excellent way of saying that. Another practitioner said it this way. He asked us to define recapturing interest in 2 words. And those 2 words were paying premium. Because you have to keep in mind that, yes, when we are repaying our loans, that is a great way to replenish our funds, to recycle them, to be able to use them again in the future. The idea is that you eventually will pay them all back. And then when you've paid them all back and you have this payment that you're used to making to your policy, that you would turn around and get another policy to fund in premium. Or if you still have room in your paid-up additions on your contract, you can use it to fund your paid-up additions. But either way, it's going in as premium. And so that's one thing you have to keep in mind. It's not only get this one policy and repay my policy. It's also repay my policy loans. It's also let's start new premium, whether we wait until we pay off whatever it is that we borrowed from our policy or against our cash value in our policy. Or maybe we just have an increase in income or just simply are ready to start a second policy. And remember that the reason we would maybe have to start a second policy instead of increase the premium on our already existing policy is because you can't usually increase the premium on your existing policy without causing a potential MEC. Some companies you might be able to have some more flexibility, but the majority of them you cannot go in with a higher premium amount than what you started with or close to that. Otherwise, the policy will become a MEC. Some companies may have additional flexibility with that paid-up additions rider, but then some companies also are doing regular MEC testing and some are not. And so you just have to be careful because even though you might start off with a policy that looks good, there's still the potential for it to MEC if it's not well built and have some room for that growth or that extra premium in the future. And so you just want to make sure you're partnered with a knowledgeable IBC practitioner who will design the policy well and they're thinking about the MEC line and making sure that they are thinking about that, what it could happen into the future as well, just to keep you safe from having a policy. You don't want it to become taxable, so you want somebody who's looking out for that and for your best interest. That's one great thing about the Nelson Nash Institute is that they take training very seriously and they make sure that the practitioners there are well mentored, so they really know how to help people well once they graduate from the program. A great book that I acquired from the think tank is called The Retirement Ruse. It's by Barry Dyke. He's written a few different really great books that have super great information, factual information about the financial industry. Another book that he's written, The Pirates of Manhattan, and I think it's The Pirates of Manhattan 2. I've only read one, but it had just crazy good facts about the industry. He was a speaker at the think tank as well, and he had so much information. I think that I'm going to go and expand more on some of the information that he has once I finish reading his book. But one thing that he mentioned that I found amazing is that we are the number 1 economy in the world. And I'm sure that doesn't come as a surprise. But then he said that although we have the number 1 economy, we are number 29 out of 30 when it comes to retirement preparedness. That was completely astounding to me. He said he believes that the main reason is because 72% of American savings, as in their savings in their retirement plans, are in the stock market. Whereas in the UK, their pension plans are only about 8 or 9% invested in the market. He said the majority of where these other countries are putting their money for their retirement years is in life insurance and annuities. And if you have any questions about annuities, I can certainly help you understand your options there as well. I do think they are great for creating your own personal pension, as in an income stream you cannot outlive, that both you and your spouse cannot outlive. One of the speakers there, I know this was Jason Lowe out of Canada, he put into perspective the phrase, buy term and invest the difference. I'm sure many of you have heard this phrase and maybe hear it whenever you're trying to share or explain this concept that you're learning with other people, the infinite banking concept. That's a very common statement. Why would you do that? You should buy term and invest the difference. What Jason said was, what does buying term and investing the difference have to do with controlling how you finance all the things you buy throughout your lifetime? I thought that was super well said. Truly, two totally different things. And while focusing on how you can finance your future purchases, building that pool of cash, you have the side effect of leaving a legacy, a great legacy, a death benefit to those you care about. As much as some of you don't really care about the death benefit, it's still a very important and needed benefit for most survivors. Oh, and I wanted to point this out as well. I talk about the cash value on a regular basis on this show, so it's important to know that your cash value is not actually a pool of money sitting in some solo account for you somewhere. It is a ledger entry. Much like when you make deposits at the bank, they don't have a box in a vault with your name on it where they are storing just your cash and they go to that box when you come in to withdraw some money. No, instead, you have turned over ownership of your money to the bank and you have now become an unsecured creditor with that bank. So nobody is just housing your money in a special place just for you to access. It is the company is taking care of all the money together and they have a ledger entry at the insurance company for what belongs to you. Well, that's most of what I had to share from this year's Think Tank. I will share some more next time if I missed anything and look forward to sharing some highlights from Barry Dyke's book that I purchased, The Retirement Ruse. I'm sure it's got a lot of great info. So if you've been learning about IBC and you're feeling like you're ready to see how it could work for you, feel free to reach out to me at valerie@alphaomegawealth.com and think about what's most important to you and what you would like to address first when starting your own banking system. Maybe it's eliminating debt, or maybe passive income. Maybe it's the tax-free access to cash or tax-free wealth transfer. Or maybe it's just building your warehouse of wealth, which coincidentally is another book written by Nelson Nash. That's the title of another book of his, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth. Whatever it is, I'm here to help you get started. Well, thanks so much for listening, everybody. I hope you have a great week. I look forward to talking to you again next week. Take care.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.